just, I guess, is there anybody here that hasn't been to one of our prior meetings before? Okay, great. Oh, we do have, that's awesome. Some new faces and stuff. So again, I just wanted to say that, initially this was part of a regional project. There was a watershed-wide flood model that was done for the Neponset River watershed. And so this project was kind of a subset of that. The town of Dedham kind of took the lead on that project initially, and there was a focus on this Manor neighborhood put forth by the town, knowing kind of the historical kind of flooding problems in this area. So it's been almost under that regional project. It was almost kind of like a demonstration project to kind of do a more fine-tuned model of the Manor neighborhood and try to look at potential concepts of how we can mitigate flooding in that area. And so this next phase, the town decided to apply for funding separately from the regional project, which also is still ongoing, to kind of advance some of the initial concepts and ideas that were developed under the first phase. And so this next meeting is basically kind of just, we're ending kind of the second phase that ends on June 30th, and basically just wanting to report back to everyone on kind of the progress that's we've made over this past year and stuff. So again, happy to be here tonight and just kind of have kind of a short agenda here. We wanted to, I guess at the last meeting, one of the things that came up was about what funding opportunities might be available to manage stormwater on private property. And so we just kind of wanted to report some information back that we found out since that last meeting. We're also going to talk in more detail about the different concept designs that were further advanced as part of this phase of the project. We're also going to talk about the next phase, which actually grant applications are actually due tomorrow. So this meeting is very timely in that respect, but the hope is again to keep advancing this project and get additional funding to keep moving it forward. So we'll talk about those next steps and then just have some general discussion again and could, answer questions, that kind of thing. So I am going to pass it over to Carrie just to talk about funding for flood preparedness at home.
Hi, everybody. So taking your feedback after the last meeting, we did go and we did some preliminary investigation into what funding opportunities might be available for private property owners to make some changes on their property. So what we have found out preliminarily is Mass Housing offers some limited low interest loans to income eligible property owners. And FEMA provides some grants to towns, which, and some of those, most of them are sort of restricted to either a declared emergency or disaster, as well as to property owners who have flood insurance. It requires a significant match from the town, and you really need to have like a long-term plan for this. These are not like easy grants to get to, and it's hard to pass it on to private property owners. So it's something that we can continue to investigate in the next phase. But at the moment, we haven't been able to identify anything that might be of immediate use other than the Mass Housing low-income loans. Any questions about that? Yes.
I know I'm just the first time here, but why would a homeowner need a loan? What are you guys trying to do to our properties?
Oh, it's not what we're trying to do to your properties. At the last meeting, we talked about some things that homeowners could do on their property, potentially to prepare for flooding and perhaps mitigate some of that flooding, but it would have to be paid for by the homeowner if you're going to try to do something on your own property.
So again, I can take this offline if you want. So what kind of flooding are we talking about in the Manor? Is this going to be now considered a flood zone that people have to apply for flood insurance?
So flood insurance is based on flooding that has happened in the past. FEMA looks at what has happened in the past, and that's how they develop their maps and their flood zones. And those zones tell you whether you're required to have insurance or not. What we're doing here is a model, and it's projecting into the future, and FEMA is not going to base insurance requirements on a projection. Yeah.
What's the definition of flood? Between like water in the basement versus like a river going down the street? Is there so many inches? I just don't know what that's.
So I don't remember if we're getting into this in the presentation, but so there are a couple of different types of flooding. There's overland flooding that happens if you're near a river, for example, or a stream, and that overtops its banks. That's overland flooding, and that is what's covered by FEMA flood insurance. Flooding in your basement that's not from overland flooding is generally groundwater seepage, and that's generally not insurable. And then there is flooding that comes from the stormwater systems, the stormwater management system in the street, in the rights of way. And that you can insure for, but you need to check with your insurance agent to make sure you've got the proper addendums.
I think
that.
they put probably the last two.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Charles River probably the first.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of groundwater flooding in this area, yeah.
So, excuse me, so it's our responsibility? So if we have, like, the last couple of rainstorms, we had like the whole part of our area flooded. If the water comes from the street into our house, this is all our problem, we have to pay for everything ourselves, the town won't help us at all?
So there isn't so this is in response to a very specific question that we got last time, which was, at the last meeting, we presented on several measures you could take on your property, building a rain garden, directing, your downspouts elsewhere. And people asked if there was funding available for that. We didn't find any funding available for that other than these low-income loans for income-eligible homeowners. In terms of the damage that happens from a flood, your insurance is likely to take care of that, depending on what kind of flooding. And there's some information here about the insurance and what that might cover. Yes.
I have a question. Does the water that is inundating Fowl Meadow, does that drain out through the Quonset River? And how does it get past the tracks?
Yeah, I'm not a hydrologist, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
which direction
It does drain to the Ponce River. We've touched on that, the culvert that the MBTA owned, and we're trying to work with them on O&M of that to keep it open. And we will touch base on the Fowl Meadow and some of the outfalls there a little bit later in this.
Because our water level is predicated by that.
We'll actually talk about a little bit of the Fowl Meadow later in this presentation. So.
Does anybody else have questions about the funding piece? Right. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over. Andrew.
Yep. So now we'll jump into talking about some of the conceptual designs that we've talked about at previous meetings. Initially, these were all focused on the Striar property, so kind of an open area that the town owned and could provide some stormwater flood storage in the case of these large storms. We actually did look at some of the outfalls draining to Fowl Meadow, which we'll also touch on this meeting. So we did some survey at those two sites earlier this year, and then we did some test pit evaluations at the Striar property. So we found good soil conditions for infiltrating stormwater through some of these practices that we'll talk about. And we also did some wetlands delineations on the site to kind of keep in mind those water resource areas where they exist and how to kind of design around those.
Yeah. And so, we took feedback from the last community meeting that we had, and I know residents, you guys had talked about the status of the wetlands at the Striar property and how previously you thought there was ponds and how we think that it's a bit more filled with sediment now. And so we took that into consideration when we were looking at these conceptual designs that we could put on the Striar property. And so originally we had kind of looked at three concept designs, and now we've switched to kind of two concept designs to talk through here today at the Striar property specifically. And so the first kind of type of concept project that we were looking at was actually a wetland expansion and restoration at the property. And so in the feedback we got about how there previously was ponds at the Striar property, when we see that, we think, oh, we could restore the wetlands that are there to increase the storage capacity that there previously had been, and that would be part of that. And additionally, expanding those wetlands. So, there is the current footprint of the wetland, and how could we increase kind of the footprint of that to increase the amount of flood mitigation that could be provided by, a wetland system.
And so typically when we're looking at a wetland expansion or restoration, there's different applications you're looking for. You're looking for large open spaces where this kind of restoration is a priority. And so when you're looking at the Striar property down by that the Sprague Street culvert, that is a wetland system already. There's a wide swath of area open that we could potentially put this type of application in. And also just like, is there an application for retrofit? And based on the feedback we've gotten from you all, there used to be a lot more storage there. So that is, in our opinion, a good opportunity to look at to retrofit this and expand and restore what had previously been there. So there are also co-benefits to doing, a wetland expansion and restoration. You can capture large volumes of stormwater. You're improving water quality. These are natural systems that have been doing this for millennia. So why not expand that type of system? There's more ecological habitat restoration and, there's lower long-term maintenance because it is a natural system. Eventually, kind of nature will take care of it. And then we also just wanted to show kind of some example photos of different wetland restorations that have been done. These are done by the National Park Service, so a little more kind of wide reaching, let's say, but you can see kind of in the bulldozer photo, that's excavating material to try to restore kind of what got buried. So this could be similar to something at the Striar property that has been filled in with the sediment. And then in the lower right, you can see that this is just kind of a restored wetland. So bringing it back to what it used to be and expanding that flood storage potential. And so this is just a concept, very high level of what this could be. When we're looking at the Striar property, we're looking at the wetland system closest to the Sprague Street culvert. And so my cursor, perfect. So this green right here, that is the existing wetland boundary based on our wetland delineation. And so that is what we would be focusing on to restore. And so when we're looking at a restoration, we're looking at removing the sediment that has been filled in there and trying to increase the capacity of flood storage in that system. So removing the soil and increasing the amount of water that could go there during these, extreme rain events. Screen right here, that would be the wetland expansion. So when I'm talking about a wetland expansion, I'm thinking, thinking about the elevation of that existing wetland, how do we expand that out and make more area where that water can fill in and we can have more of those wetland systems. And so taking what we already have and just kind of making it a little better, a little more resilient. And then this darkest green is just bringing it all back to grade. So how do we tie this back into the existing system so it all can kind of tie together to improve the resiliency here?
Can I ask one question about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
We do get, from time to time, it's recently, but flooding onto, Sprague Street. Is that been mitigated or is that being mitigated?
So this is just the concept level. So we're just looking at what could be done on the property. As part of the next phase, we're looking at different options. And so looking at how Sprague Street, how that culvert and how the road interacts with this system would be part of that, feasibility of what we're looking at. So when we looked at this concept, we were just like, what is there right now and what could it be? You know what I mean? Just like in terms of the wetland system. But looking at the Sprague Street culvert specifically as part of this concept, we did not do. But yeah.
So clarify, who's in charge of cleaning the culverts? And is it several agencies? Do they work hand in hand, or how does that work with the culverts? Because you had said that some of the culverts, they're all like sediment. And who cleans the culvert? Who's in charge of cleaning the culverts? Is it the town? Is it the state? Is it EPA? Who is?
So that's a great question. I think we're actually just focusing on this concept right now, which we're not really involving the culvert as part of, but we can answer that at the end during the general discussion. I think we can touch more on that a little bit. Yep.
Does this conflict with the Manor project? The same piece of land is looked at for the Manor, where they have a athletic field, tennis courts.
Yeah, great question. So when we were looking at this location, I know initially in previous concepts, we had been looking at the entire Striar property. I think, we did take in mind that there is planned usage for this area, and we did not want to affect any planned usage for this area. So this concept really prioritized the open space that did not have program usage under any kind of potentially planned improvements. We were trying to stay away from that. So no, this would not affect kind of any of that, the Manor project based on our understanding. Did that answer your question?
Well, is all of that green part of your, project plans?
This is a concept, so it's not part of any project plan yet. This is just a potential use footprint. This wetland is a resource area, so even under that project, it wouldn't be programmed to be changed from a resource area. So,
And
the Manor project wouldn't necessarily affect the wetland system. It's a resource area that is protected under the Wetland Protection Act.
There'd be no fields in that area, or, I mean,
What?
there'd be no fields or recreational in that area. The only thing that would be part of that design plan, and by the way, the road that they're showing on there is the access road that was part of the Manor Fields plan, which is non-existent.
Yeah, this is just draft. This is just showing we're staying away from the planned usage. The fields were in the back.
Manor project would be on the upside.
Would be on the
It would-
left side of
It would be back in here. So this is the Sprague Street culvert. This is the Striar property. This is the actual access right now that
Yeah.
exists. This is maybe a potential, if the plan did go forward, this could be the access road, but this does not exist. This right here, this does exist. This is a wetland resource area that's protected under the Wetland Protection Act that does exist.
Okay.
So,
If my understanding is correct, that green portion that you show on that slide is where the trees are now.
there are trees there now, yes. And as part of any project, we would be looking at the impacts, but yeah. Okay, yes.
So, what part of the manor is flooding that you're concerned about? What part of the area is flooding that we're concerned about, that we need to use the Striar property to dump the water? The water was always going to Striar property. I don't understand why that's where it's always been going. Where is it flooding that we have to dig that out further? And what are we doing further down the line?
So we have done modeling for the whole Manor neighborhood area. So for this project, we were focused on pretty much large scale projects that could increase flood storage in the whole Manor neighborhood, which would decrease downflow storage. And we've kind of presented on some of the model findings in some of those areas throughout the Manor previously. So I think we could send a link of the old presentations and you could go through and see some of those modeling results and the reports that are available. So I think that would answer a lot of some of these questions related to kind of.
But to look at that, the manor is on the other side of it. So all
Correct.
the water that's coming down the Striar property is coming from up in Oakdale and up in that area.
Correct.
It's not coming from the manor.
Correct. So the idea is to store water that's coming upstream so it doesn't get to the manor as quickly. So it's using, because pretty much there's a large drainage area that goes to that foul meadow. And anywhere in that area that you can store stormwater is going to reduce how much gets down to the foul meadow and in the Manor neighborhood. So we've kind of talked in previous meetings, like inside the Manor neighborhood, if you have high groundwater or you're right on the edge of a swamp, some of these mitigation practices won't work because there's already water there. So the idea is to put these green infrastructure, BMP, stormwater treatment systems upstream to hold some of that water so you get less in the Manor. And so that's kind of the idea and what this project has tried to look at, some of these potential projects and how that could decrease the stormwater runoff downstream in the Manor. Does that make sense?
It does and it doesn't. Because like I said, years ago, that was what you're saying you're gonna do to it now. And we didn't have flood issues.
Correct. And so I think we've talked a
The
little.
reason why we didn't have flood issues is because everything that was after that, meaning the streams and all that, were wide open. The
Correct.
water flowed right through. It didn't get stuck at the Striar property.
Correct.
It flowed all the way through down to the Neponset River. That's where it went. Some of it went into the Foul Meadow, but most of it went into the Neponset River. And they were much wider and they weren't filled in. So if you go downstream, if you just cross the street to where the pipe goes underneath the road, you can actually see where it's blocked. It's actually on a person's house. It's built on top of it. And
Gotcha.
the pipe went from 2 to 3 pipes down to 1 little pipe.
Gotcha.
and the stream doesn't flow anymore.
Yeah. So
So
some,
that water is all gonna stay stagnant there and build up our water all around. Those houses that are all here, all these houses that are right here, their water table's all gonna get rised up again. Because the water's gonna get stored here. It's not gonna flow out like it's supposed to.
So
So what are they gonna do? They gonna apply for, homeowners insurance?
I think these are great questions, and I think we can discuss them at the end with the rest of the conversation. I guess let's focus on this concept. Are there any other questions on this concept that I can answer right now? Yes.
So there is a water problem that's not Manor specific, but just, I would say, north of this, along the train tracks. Joe, help me with my memory, but those houses get water from the train and it seems to run all the way down to the back of, I'd say, the Boston Dedham business area, which is kind of abutting it. You can't see it on this, it would be kind of like in your top left corner. But water comes from the crane. Is it crane?
We talked about this previously.
Yeah, and I didn't know if maybe we would, and I apologize, this is my first meeting. I don't know, right now I'm thinking it's a Manor problem, and I think it's more of a precinct 5 problem.
That's all part of this,
maybe-
this retention basin. It does flow down from that neighborhood, it does come down into this area. This is one of the concepts that the town is looking at.
To alleviate their
To
problem.
alleviate the issue
Okay.
further downstream, correct?
All right. I think I'm caught up.
All right, so no worries. I'm gonna go on to the next concept. So next, oh, sorry, model.
so yeah, talking about the model, and we've expanded on this a little bit in previous meetings, so we can hand out some more detailed information, but basically we input this conceptual design into the model to see what kind of benefit we could get. And so the model, for anyone that doesn't know or remember, is kind of a model of the entire Neponset River watershed that was developed under this grant. And it basically inputs town drainage systems, existing water bodies, into a computer model, and we run different rainstorm design storms into it and see where kind of the flooding pops up and how much flooding there is. And so for this to show the comparison for what this project would do, we looked at one storm, so a 10-year, 24-hour storm, which basically just means a storm that's big enough that would only happen once every 10 years. So a pretty large storm. On the left, the bar is the present day storm and how much total stormwater runoff goes through that Sprague Street culvert. And then the storm in the middle is the 2070 10-year, 24-hour storm. So that's the same storm, but it uses future weather projections because storms from climate change are getting more intense and more frequent. It's going to be a greater volume of stormwater runoff. And so on the right is the bar that includes this project. And so you can see it's not a huge benefit, but a 3% reduction in total stormwater runoff. So this doesn't really relate exactly to the height or frequency of that flooding. And that's something we can go as the design is furthered along. But this kind of shows some of the benefit that you'll get from a project like this. And I think it just reiterates the fact that there's no one solution to kind of these large storm events in the neighborhood. It's basically building a bunch of these projects and trying to mitigate the increase in rainstorms from the present day to 2070 over the next 50 years would be the goal.
So the wetland restoration and expansion, that was just one concept we look at the Striar property. Another option, so instead of doing that project, a different option would be doing underground storage at the Striar property in a similar location. And so this kind of application, it's a subsurface system. And so when we're looking at this, we're looking at, a bit more options of where we can place it. So it can be placed under impervious or pervious areas. So, if you look outside at that field, we could put it under there. If you look at the parking lot, it could go under there. So just a wider range of applications versus a wetland expansion or restoration where it needs to be at or adjacent to a wetland. This has more options. And so this just stores water for infiltration, or it doesn't even have to infiltrate. It can just have that volume of water taken offline during these storm events to kind of slow the release back into the system during less intense rain events. So we have more time and more kind of space for the water to go during these events. There's co-benefits to this as well. It's less of a green system than a wetland restoration or expansion. But it does have the ability to capture large volumes of water. You can customize it. You can make it as big as you're willing to pay for, more or less, and the site conditions allow. And there is less effect on future programming. So I know the Manor project does have certain uses kind of pre-programmed. And so this has a bigger option to kind of be placed in other places or within the property, or kind of whatever your development is, you do have the option to put this there. And so looking at just the concept, this green is still the existing wetlands. You can see it kind of in space. This wouldn't change at all. We wouldn't be affecting this at all. And then you can see this blue square up here. This is just a potential place where we could be putting this underground storage. And, you know, all it is more or less a box, and it's typically a proprietary system. And then it would just store the water, you know, underneath the ground. And then depending on the system, it would either infiltrate back into the ground, or it would slowly trickle back out after the peak of the storm has passed.
So we also modeled this with the same parameters, and it showed a 1.6% reduction, so a little bit less. And that pretty much just has to do with kind of the total storage capacity of a system like that. But again, these are kind of just the first stages of the design. So these numbers aren't set in stone, and they could vary as we kind of progress these designs along. And so initially we were going to look at 3 different designs for the Striar property, but after some resident and town feedback and identifying some problem areas, we looked at another location. So this looked at some of the outfalls discharging to Foul Meadow. And so to answer the question a little bit about the Foul Meadow and how it works, so a lot of the Manor drains to the Foul Meadow, and then some of that goes, or all of that goes to the Neponset River. Some of the culverts are owned by MBTA, which the town is working with, and then some of the outfalls are owned by the town. And so these are outfalls that are owned by the town, and they can do something about it. And so one of the projects that we're proposing is daylighting these outfalls. And so what daylighting an outfall means is pretty much removing the pipe that is underground and making an open channel. And so some of these outfalls, as you can see on the picture on the right, they discharge 100 yards into the woods on an old kind of paper road that was never built on. And so the idea would be to open these areas up and make kind of a longer channel, which provides a little bit of storage, not as much as the other projects, but it reduces that downstream restriction, and hopefully increases kind of the efficiency of that individual stormwater system. So those catch basins maybe don't flood as much, and the water can get out a little bit better. And so this kind of project has co-benefits, like Alex mentioned, improved water quality. So opening up to a natural state, infiltrating some groundwater, restoring habitat. So the foul meadow, it goes into the foul meadow, and you can restore that to before the pipe was there. Lower maintenance costs. So if you don't have a pipe, you don't have to maintain it. And then improve resiliency. And here is an example. So this is actually from the Manor neighborhood. If some of you guys recognize it, this is on Greensboro Road, and was done by the town a few years ago. And pretty much, as you can see, there used to be a pipe on the picture on the left. That's from the woods looking to Greensboro, and on the right is from Greensboro looking into the woods. But you can kind of see it opened it up, improved a little bit of storage, and just got rid of an old pipe that was underground. So you don't have as much restriction downstream of those catch basins and drainage systems. And so here are a few of the outfalls to Foul Meadow. So in the bottom left is actually that Greensboro outfall that we just looked at. There is still some pipe downstream of that, so we would look into daylighting that portion of the pipe, and then a few other outfalls to the Foul Meadow. And so as you can see in some of these pictures, some of the pipes are a little bit submerged, or sediment has built up, some vegetation. So really opening these areas up and trying to promote flow from those drainage systems to help with some of those immediate upstream areas is the goal. And from feedback for that Greensboro project, it seems like that has helped a little bit with some of the immediate flooding upstream of that area. Yes.
Or tell me where I see that Greensboro along the you can't see where it is in the Manor area. Is that off of Trenton Road? Is it on the back end? Is it on the other side? I can't from that picture figure out where you're talking about those other 3.
Gotcha.
I live in Holmes Road, right? So I cannot tell by that diagram where that is in my neighborhood, it's so small.
Gotcha.
Or that, or make it bigger, or do something, that'd be great.
Yeah, I don't know if we can zoom in on this, but I can go through with the cursor. So down here is pretty much the end of Greensboro where that daylighted outfall is. And then this is it basically goes down to this is Hastings and then this is Trenton Road. And so yeah, thank you for the pointer. And then so that foul meadow, the big wetlands, the wooded areas kind of all behind it.
Right.
And so I'm not sure where Holmes is, if we can see it on that. Okay.
So you're talking about putting 2 or 3 of those, the culverts that you're talking about inside the wooded area behind.
Correct. And so these outfalls actually have catch basins that extend up into all those streets that you can see. So we don't have those on the map, but it isn't just, you know, right there. It's pretty much everything upstream is gonna have more chance to flow out properly.
And that's gonna flow out to where?
So that flows out to the Foul Meadow, which goes to the Neponset River eventually. Yes. Yes.
The second, outfall, up from Greensboro, you said it is off of the end of Hastings Road?
Hastings, yes.
No, the other one.
Down,
further
down below.
Down below. No, go down right there. That one there,
This one.
yeah. What catch basins is that servicing?
I believe there's a couple up here.
Excuse me, take the culvert from Bottom Road. If you walk down Bottom,
Yeah,
on each side of the road there,
yeah.
that takes that culvert that crosses.
So that's the one that goes through to a private property and goes out to that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, do you have any indicator where the train tracks are and where the ducts go through, that go under the train tracks into the Neponset area? In any of your diagrams up there?
Not up here, so it would basically be off to the right of the screen is where the train tracks are and where they cross. And we have identified kind of that MBTA culvert that crosses those train tracks. And working with them to kind of create a more consistent maintenance to make sure that flow is kind of going through there.
The railroad, or like with the EPA get involved because
In fact, we worked with them this past fall and winter, and they cleaned that culvert all up. It's behind Sherman Road.
But this is something you can control, correct?
These outfalls, yeah, are town owned and are the drainage system from the town. Yes.
Is Hyde Park considered part of this, Neponset watershed? Because behind us on Sprague Street, we have the backside of, used to be the old Stop and Shop warehouse, and there's water between the two.
Mhm.
I don't know if they're draining one way, we drain the other.
Yeah, so we don't have the map of the full drainage area, but we can definitely kind of distribute that and kind of show you everything that does eventually drain out through the manor. Yeah.
The entire watershed is
We're working in synergy as opposed to there's a different conversation happening in Boston right now where they're directing the water top. You know, we're all trying to go to Kent, right, towards the Neponset near the Foul Meadow.
Yep, so our model is for the Neponset, and then we're working with them and stuff.
But I didn't know if it included the city of Boston.
Yes.
Did you look at any, around Kensington, Guile?
Yeah.
That's where the water actually.
And that's right across from the Striar. That's why I'm kind of confused here. That would be a big thing to be part of the Striar drainage, to drain off. If you have, and you're saying to me, you have looked at.
Yeah, so we've definitely looked at a lot of areas and we've gathered a lot of information from everybody. So I don't know if we have a map with us, but if you could hang around after and kind of jot some of these notes down, we have kind of an inventory of all the different problem areas throughout the neighborhood. And kind of these projects were more ones that we could apply for more funding under the next round of MVP program funding to kind of keep moving these projects.
Because I would prefer something that flows versus something that's stagnant, that the mosquitoes can grow in and stuff like that, like Striar Pond just being a pond and just a place for water to sit. isn't that when mosquitoes build up versus a stream that flows that they don't build up on, that flows out to the Ponce River. I like the idea of what you're doing, but the ends down here, the Striar property, to me is not a good idea, because that water sitting or draining in, leaching into the ground and letting it build up an outlet table.
Yeah, so if this project that we're looking to kind of push forward into the next round is kind of successful and kind of works, we can definitely take a look at kind of that other area that you mentioned and some of the streams and see what else we can do.
When I was growing up, that was a significant wide stream going all the way down from the Striar property, all the way down to the Ponce River, and it flowed. We used to actually ice skate.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that could be something again like that. We look at one of these restoration projects and that we can definitely look into.
Yeah, like Andrew said, we can jot this down. We can send you kind of the previous presentations and we can show you everything that we've kind of investigated so far.
Is this presentation going to be available on the town website, so I can zoom that print out and look at it?
It will definitely
We
be
can-
on the project website.
Okay.
Project.
And then we have emails, right? So we can
Yes.
distribute. Okay.
Make sure they sign in and put your email address on. We will send all of this information out to you.
Yes.
I just want to make a comment. I think we need to choose the option that the sump pumps are used for this. I think that's the best option. And that's what's doing another problem, but that would be number one.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely take a note of that.
Was there any thought given to combining both and doing both at the same time?
Yes, yeah. So I think that as part of the next round, we have a couple of, both of these projects that we kind of want to get more funding for and keep pushing forward. Which
Each option that we put up there only has like a single digit percent.
correct. Yeah, so the goal would be to keep pushing as many of these forward as we can. And I think, so we can talk a little bit about next steps and moving these projects to design and construction.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So all along, I guess, as part of this grant application, obviously, we were looking at 3 concepts like we talked about. And originally, we were thinking those concepts would lie all exclusively on the Striar property. And since then, like we said, based on feedback from this meeting, prior meetings, I should say, the outfall daylighting concept kind of came to light too. And so when we're thinking about what we're moving forward, we want to really think about kind of the goals of the program, right? So we want to think about what projects are most likely to get funded. And so through the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Action Grant Program, again, it's fostering projects that promote climate resiliency. And really the core of those projects is nature-based solutions. So, something like the underground storage project, not that we couldn't put that forth, but it might be less likely to get funded because it's considered more of a gray infrastructure type of project. So I guess, in terms of thinking about this next application and what we're putting forth, again, we want to promote projects that we think are going to get funded through the program. This is a great program, and, we're even seeing other projects in other communities actually get constructed. I mean, they want to see subsequent phases of these projects continue to move forward. So I feel like in that sense, it's a very, there's lots of great funding available. We talked about kind of those 3 concepts that we kind of presented, and the intent still by the end of June is to move one of those concepts forward to a 25% design. And I think at this point, we are leaning toward the outfall daylighting project. But obviously wanted to present and get more feedback from the group as well. Talked about the MVP action grant application. So these are actually due tomorrow by 4 o'clock. So again, very timely discussion. And we really appreciate, because I know a lot of you provided letters of support for this project, and I can't tell you how crucial those letters of support are, and especially coming directly from the residents who are living within the Manor neighborhood. They do really make a difference. If anyone really wants to submit a letter of support, and you can get it to us by tomorrow morning, we can still submit it with the grant application. So if you're interested in doing that, please let us know, and we can provide a template for that letter as well to help. As part of this kind of current phase of the project, we had some discussion last meeting about some of the other items that we've been looking at, unrelated, kind of separate from kind of the design component, some of these regulatory updates. And so there are a few concepts related to that we're still looking to kind of advance forward as part of this next phase as well. And one of those was looking at, what can be done further upstream that can positively benefit kind of the Manor neighborhood area, knowing that there's limited opportunity, groundwater is high, there's limited opportunity to infiltrate stormwater in that area. How can we limit what's coming down as part of kind of new development, redevelopment projects as well? So we were looking at creating kind of like an overlay district, and we're going to continue that kind of discussion as well as part of this next phase, and try to maybe develop kind of a draft bylaw, kind of what would that look like if we try to, encourage more or require more infiltration on properties or management of stormwater on those properties upstream. So that's all part of kind of this next phase. Yep.
Are you talking about new construction or current enclosed homes, or what exactly do you mean by you're talking about possibly putting a bylaw in?
Yeah.
So, and on top of that, just can you kind of give me an idea of what upstream means, like where in the Manor, like toward the Manor neighborhood, where are you talking upstream? Are you talking more up toward the open side, like the school coming down? Are you talking coming down from like, I don't understand.
Yeah, no, I apologize because we actually don't have our map, but we've been working on kind of delineating kind of that overlay district and what that would look like.
Yeah,
So if you want to just kind of give more details on the.
yeah, I think by the Oakdale School is kind of the edge of the whole catchment area, and so from about there down to the Manor drains through the Manor, and so that would be the area. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I should say the town already has obviously existing stormwater regulations in place that, require management of stormwater on private property. And so this would just be kind of taking that a step further, kind of in this selected area to see how it could provide a benefit downstream. And so it's still very, conceptual in nature as we're trying to move this concept forward. But
Turning to is that's great, but all of a sudden now the people in the Manor are gonna have to do stuff on their properties that's gonna be added on. Or we're talking about new construction coming in, when they dig up all the trees, they don't replace everything, they don't do this, and that's gonna fall on them, because I don't want people in the Manor neighborhood or coming down to say, oh yeah, you have to put a filtration system in your backyard, so it costs $50,000. There you go, congratulations, you have a new bylaw.
yeah, yeah.
So, I think, having meetings like this is great, but we need to be a little bit more specific about how these ideas that come out, because not everyone can make every single meeting.
Yeah.
Some kids, I work,
Yeah.
I can't make every meeting, and people are talking about laws and this, and now mandatory inspections and the whole.
Yeah.
I think you guys unfortunately are getting wrapped into that whole entire thing that's happening at the same time. So I think before you start talking about changing bylaws and putting something in, I think you might want to be a little more specific with that idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so the whole point of this next phase is to maybe put something kind of a draft together for starting a preliminary discussion. So nothing is going to be implemented or adopted as part of this next phase. And so, and there's definitely going to be a lot of public engagement opportunities around this, and no bylaw gets adopted without going before, if it's a bylaw before town meeting. And so, I mean, we're way off from that process. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, but came into the Manor Neighborhood Association to talk about this. Now, all of a sudden, the town engineer was at that meeting and didn't tell anybody in the Manor this was happening. When we had an agenda, put that in front of town meeting. Select board, about doing inspections in everyone's house in the Manor for the flooding in this infrastructure. So as a person who lives in the Manor, went to those meetings with the Manor Neighborhood Association, I feel like we got a bait and switch. So if I'm sitting here saying I'm being very protective, I'm being very protective because it affects me.
Yeah. No, we obviously really appreciate everybody's impact, back input and stuff.
Well,
and the goal is to continue, yeah.
Absolutely right, is I got nervous. The reason I'm here is I got something in the mail saying that people were gonna be coming into our houses for home inspections, and if they weren't allowed in, we were gonna be charged fees.
Okay. Yeah.
What is that about?
Yeah, that's completely unrelated to this meeting. So I don't have any comment on that. Yeah. Oh, okay. No, that's not the topic for this meeting. This is all about. Okay.
Well, I know what I read here. And the town manager just sent out a letter dated yesterday about all that, and that letter that was sent out yesterday, which I just saw tonight, that was presented here, that we're discussing that issue tonight, but I think we should be discussing that issue tonight because it's a major issue. And that
the cost for all of this will be going before town meeting. I think it's $4 million or a little bit more than that for this plan, but they're basically saying anyone in the Hall Park, Manor neighborhood and part of Green Lodge, they're going to be coming down and they're gonna be having people inspect your basements, look around your basements, and if you don't let them in, they're gonna fine you.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I appreciate everyone's concern. I just, yeah. I was hoping to, just stay on topic with what we're,
According to this letter, they also did it in 4, 7, and 1, and people didn't participate, so they're gonna force the Manor and us to do it. And I think a lot of people are here tonight, and I'm sorry you guys got caught in the middle of this, because myself, I'm upset about it, and I think a bunch of other people here are upset about it, and that's why we're here tonight, and you just got caught in this, all of us. And whoever is in this room, do not cut me off again. I'm a taxpayer, I live here, and when I'm done speaking, then you can speak.
Can I say something? I think, I am from the Manor also, but I think we are talking two separate issues. I think I'm talking stormwater, and we want to stop it from coming into the Manor, so we don't have a storage problem, which is a separate issue. So I think we need to get some storage meetings going, and that's where we need to air this. And, so now we don't have a meeting, and I think the town needs to step up and get a meeting for this and tell us how we're gonna resolve that issue, because there's people dealing with storage in their homes that, we can't wait for a project like this. I don't think it's fair. I really don't think it's fair.
There's so much going into at the ends of where we're going to do the cleanup, the Manor Neighborhood Association. The sewage is backing up, and we're gonna do it, Jim, where it is Bottom Road. And the town's aware of it, we're supposed to do a cleanup there, but the people who are gonna organize the cleanup, were concerned about it, they didn't think it was safe for people in the neighborhood and kids to go down. So you're absolutely 100% correct. And I guess part of my frustration is this all went to the select board and the select board meeting before having those meetings in the neighborhood to talk about it. And it was put on the, town meeting in May. But now we're hearing about it. Yeah, and I'm so glad you didn't do, because I was bring my kids down. So thank you.
Yeah. No way.
So I agree with exactly what she said. I think the stormwater stuff, to bring all that stuff in the fall, that is a great idea. We should do it. But my problem is what's happening now on the other side. I think a lot of people here were coming to this meeting to have that discussion. In the letter from Leon on the 24th said it wasn't going to be at this meeting. So, and no one got it. The only reason why I got this letter was because it was emailed out by Jim Marr in the Association, and I didn't see it since then.
So first off, Jim Mark. These meetings have been productive. Problem being is, there are people in this room that have shared very sensitive information about their basins being flooded with sewage, with water, groundwater levels being so high. But then we hear that the people that we're reporting it to have decided that they're going to request a mandatory study, a mandatory inspection of our houses. And if we don't allow them in, we'll be fined. And that was presented before the Board of Selectmen. And the Board of Selectmen told that it was presented before the Board of Selectmen by the town engineer. What I didn't know, what I thought was a concept at the Board of Selectmen, I then find out it's not a concept. That is moving forward through the town meeting process and to have these mandatory inspections with fines. And that's why you're caught up in the middle of this, because people in this room have shared that they're having water issues, and now we're getting mandatory inspections. And I know Jason's up there and he wants to say something, but they all tie into each other. They are connected, whether you think they are. Because if the water table is up, I'm sorry, Water table is up. There's more water going into the sewer system. Okay, so, you can't say they're not connected because they,
And not to hold up this meeting, because I think we should table this issue, and I think it's up to Jason to be the problem.
I appreciate everyone having their concerns. I know you got the letter from Leon. He was direct, we were directed not to talk about that this evening, but I am here tonight to answer questions at the conclusion of this meeting. So if you have any questions or concerns, Joe and I will be hanging out in the back, and we're more than willing to hang out as long as you guys need for us to stay here and answer any questions. And nothing is definitive right now. Everything is still in a proposal phase, but we can talk more about that at the conclusion of the meeting. I want to respect our consultants' times and keep them moving with this process, and we'll pick this up afterwards if you want to hang out afterwards.
I
Thank you.
have project specific.
Go ahead.
Sure. So I have we used to have a family house called Taylor Ave, which is above this, and it's part of what would be called Park neighborhood.
Okay.
It's at the top of the stuff. They get water all the time, so they're sitting very close to a water table,
Okay.
and yet they're probably not on your
Radar is being
radar
a concern. Okay.
So there's other neighborhoods like
Yeah.
this. It's not just the Manor. We just happen to be downhill of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if this project couldn't be more Dedham inclusive with the benefit coming to the Manor as
Yeah.
opposed to, some sort of radar.
Yeah.
Just because we bought a house below sea level. Shame on us. But I'm just because
Yeah.
I know that there's pockets of places. So just a little background. Years ago, there was a rodent problem in a neighborhood. And
Okay.
people who called to report it so that they could document it were the people that got fines or the Board of Health went to. So you kind of got called out by being honest.
Okay.
So I think that that's the trepidation when you have people saying they're going to come in. So I
Yeah.
apologize, but you can respect
Yeah.
why they feel that.
Yeah.
But I just think it should be more of a data.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I,
That water that starts up that top of the hill.
Yeah.
Is made land down where
Okay.
we are.
yeah, no, I was going to say too, and Jim, I do think these meetings have been really productive. We've gotten some really great information, and, we can do so much with the model, but it's great having your firsthand perspective and knowledge from many of the, members of the Manor Neighborhood Association and the community that have lived here for, some 50 years and stuff. And so we appreciate that. And that really has shaped this project kind of going forward in the path that we're currently on. And I just want to say the goal of this project is that we want a lot of what we do to be transferable to other parts of Dedham. And there's going to be opportunities to explore, potentially other areas that are problematic and stuff too as part of this project. And it's great to have that knowledge though, that there's other concerns in that area. Yeah. Yep.
And then have these other neighborhoods, and I hate for us to say, we address the bottom of the problem, which is.
Right.
And yet the real reason
Right. Yep.
may still exist.
Yeah, no, if that's problematic, then we obviously want to take that into consideration. At this point, obviously we're limited in what we can do as part of this next round, but the intention is to keep having these conversations and think about other, ideas and what else we can put forward kind of in the future as well. So, right now we feel like in terms of our best chances of funding, in terms of what we currently have on the table and what we've done as part of this current project, is that we'd like to move the outfall daylighting project to a 75% design as part of this next phase. And so that currently is kind of written into this grant application. I think it's a great project. I think it's going to be something that's viewed very favorably by the MVP, reviewers and stuff. So I think I feel good about that. And then we also still want to be able to advance or potentially advance the wetland restoration and expansion work as well. I think that's a little more complicated, and I don't think we want to kind of get too far ahead of ourselves before we're determining kind of what's what. I think we want to do more of a kind of a feasibility study for that area. We want to look at what type of sediment is there? How much sediment needs to be removed? What is that cost going to look like? What's the benefit? And so we're going to do some legwork under this next phase to kind of get to that.
Any cost estimates at all? And if you were to get the grants, how much that would save the town? I'm assuming it's not 100% grant.
So they've improved it since last year. So last year it was a 25% match. And so that match can be put forth as a cash match or in-kind services or a combination of both. So last year, the town put forth, a certain cash match and then also in-kind services. So we've been tracking, all of the municipal staff's time invested in the project, and they're getting credit for that. So, and there was a 25% match. And now under this current phase, they've dropped the match to a 10% match, which obviously is a lot more easier to fulfill using in-kind services. We do have a small cash match that we're putting forth. Again, the town is putting forth as part of this next phase. But I guess in thinking about construction going forward, if we were to do the 75% design for the outfall daylighting, And maybe next year we'd say, hey, we're going to do 100% design. Maybe we're going to apply for a 2-year grant. We're going to do 100% design. We're going to do permitting, and then we're going to do construction in the second year. And so you can apply for like a 2-year project and stuff too. So that maybe could be something on the radar. So you could get, yeah, 90% of that project potentially funded the construction. So if we have a really good project, and we've seen some great projects, move forward and get, millions of dollars in funding through the program. So it really is a great program. And in each year they seem to be increasing the amount of funding available. So this year there's $37 million available through the program. So yeah, no, I appreciate all your comments.
So the town has committed to whatever this match is. If at some point it becomes cost prohibitive, are we on the hook because we applied for the grant?
No, I mean, it's on a reimbursement basis. You're getting reimbursed as we produce deliverables related to the project. So
Because you could dig and discover we're on top of an ancient ruins or something.
right. Yeah. I mean, things can always happen. And that's why we want to kind of ease into this
Maybe
phase
you want
process.
to-
Yeah. Yeah. No, you never know. And that, I mean, obviously, you hope projects are going to move forward in a certain direction, but I think that's why it's smart with the wetlands restoration and expansion that we're not saying we're going to do 75% design for that tomorrow, because we're really not in a position and ready to do that. We want to do the legwork so we can say, hey, this is a great project. It's viable. It's cost effective. We want to move it forward. And so I think, but yeah, I mean, once they get the funding, that's secured for the town. So yeah. So does anyone else have any other specific questions on this, on the project and stuff? Okay.
If you wanted to send a letter of support,
Yes.
you have somewhere you said you had like a draft letter.
Yep, we have a template. Yeah, which of course you're welcome to modify in any way that you want. It's just kind of a starting point. But yeah, no, if you're willing, like I said, we need those letters by tomorrow morning because we're going to submit tomorrow morning. So it's a short. Okay.
Whoever it's here, maybe, and just put it on there.
Yeah, no, I'm happy. I can.
Right?
Yeah, if everyone puts their email.
Support, like to send a letter, then I, would support that.
Yeah, no, that would be great. It really goes a long way having those letters. It really does. There's certain points allocated to support letters, and it's all just kind of when they're allocating points to different aspects of the application. So.
Well, I went to the Manor Neighborhood Association one and I signed in and
Oh, was that the last meeting or last year? Are you talking about, or just
February.
okay? From last year's meeting. Yeah.
Why?
Okay.
But normally Jim's really good. If he gets something, he disseminates it.
Okay.
And I didn't see that. So.
Okay. Yeah. No, we're happy to still get that out and appreciate your willingness to still put something together at this kind of last hour and stuff. So. No.
I think what this is great, and I'm hoping that this is gonna help the neighborhood. Unfortunately, because we started the process and people came to the meetings, I think you got caught in a town thing, unfortunately. So if I was really, frustration isn't for you guys. I think what this is gonna be really helpful and really good moving forward, which is why I said I'll send a letter of support.
Yeah.
And moving forward is great. Unfortunately, you just got crisscrossed into what.
I just want to say though too, like, I mean, the town, you guys have, I mean, has been really supportive about moving this project forward for the community and stuff too. And so we're really appreciative of all the support that kind of Jason and Joe and the team has offered us on this project. So it's been very valuable. Yes.
My wife is a witness here. I've been asking for what you're talking about for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I've been bringing people from the town down, showing them these cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
Showing
Yeah.
them these streams, showing them this stuff that's all been sediment built up that needs to be dug out. That's why you see the road flooded, Spring Street flooded.
Yeah.
Nothing flood when you dig it out, you dig the pipes up, out of flows. People's houses flooding, storage getting backed up. What you're presenting is what I've been asking for, godsend.
Yeah.
Godsend.
No, and I know that this work has really been on the town's radar for a while.
It's because I heard that somebody wants to come in my house unannounced.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys got crisscrossed.
Yeah, no, I was going to say though, I know the Manor neighborhood, and the flooding concerns in that area have been on the town's radar for a while. And it's something that, we've kind of been discussing for the past several years behind the scenes. And this program is still a relatively new program and seemed like a great fit. And I'm so glad that the town's been able to get funding to kind of advance this work and stuff. And I'm fingers crossed. I'm hopeful that, this is going to continue. We can keep the momentum going on this. So.
We just don't want to be the group that funds the other balance.
So does anyone else have any specific questions on this project? Or I know, so we're going to get out, some additional emails and provide that, that letter and really, again, really appreciate everyone's help. And we talked about the project website and making other presentations available for anyone that might have missed a prior presentation. And, you know, we're always happy to answer questions and stuff. And so, and there's lots of public engagement, again, included under this next phase. And so if we get funded, we'll be continuing that as well.
Excellent, looking forward to it.
Great, great.
Are there any questions online?
We don't have any questions right now.
Okay,
I actually have one question,
Sure.
Lena. So, are you also in all this modeling considering future? By the time you start to build, the landscape might change and how the water flows. I feel like every year it's different. Like right now, every time it rains, I have huge pool in my backyard, but a
Right,
year ago I didn't have.
right, right.
So, is that taken into consideration?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, like, so the model is kind of like a living model that we're gonna be constantly kind of tweaking going forward. But I mean, the hallmark of this MVP program is because we're seeing more severe storm events that have longer duration and greater frequency. And so it's really, you know, looking at that and look at those storms and modeling and designing as it relates to those storm events that are happening more frequently. So that all is factored into all of the modeling work and the design work that we're doing. Yeah.
Question,
Yes.
for the day-to-day of these recent torrential rains that we're getting, I think the outfall restoration is the way to go. But I was just curious, if you take the average bad storm that we're having now, and you go right through the roof, and you talk about FEMA only covering river and surface water flooding and storm drain, both inoperative storm drains really isn't covered by FEMA insurance. So FEMA insurance would cover the catastrophic flood within the Ponset River, right?
Mhm.
My understanding, I wasn't born in Denton, that the Manor flooded in 1955 in Hurricane Carol, and that the state or the federal government had to dredge the Neponset River to correct that. And since then, there's really not been any significant flooding event. Not that we've been hit with a hurricane probably as severe as Carol was.
Yeah.
In your modeling, you say you've done like the whole Neponset River all the way out to the bay, Dorchester Bay?
So the whole watershed. Yep.
Do you know,
Yeah, no.
is FEMA the federal government? I mean, 1955. Is the Neponset River condition the same, or is it degraded? And are we subject to probable severe flooding in the event of a hurricane? Just curious.
so I don't know that I can answer that question specifically. We do have so Dedham has been leading the charge on this regional effort as well. And just to follow up on one of your questions, so we are looking at where the water is coming from, because we wanted a regional model because water doesn't stop at the town line. So everything is interconnected. We're looking at that. And the model goes from, is the entire freshwater watershed. So it stops at the Baker Dam. So yes, we're looking at, and what we're looking at is not necessarily like a hurricane, but we're looking at what we're expecting.
Seasonal variation.
Right.
Federal government looked at the Neponset River since 1955. I mean, really.
I mean, they've certainly updated their maps, but they are only looking at what has happened. They're not looking at projected severe storms and the seasonal changes that we're seeing in precipitation patterns.
Right.
And I don't see that changing anytime soon. But they have been updating their maps periodically. I think they get updated every 10 years or so.
Because I would think the potential for we're getting more and more hurricanes, and we have sea level rising a few feet projected. I was just wondering, is the federal government doing any study of the Neponset River?
So I do know that USGS is doing a study of, I think it's all three of the Boston Harbor watersheds, so Mystic, Charles, and Neponset. To sort of update for not just sea level rise, but also for climate resilience purposes and
Really?
looking at some of the freshwater things. They're collecting data from all of our towns. We've been assisting
I just
with that.
They agree after the fact.
There was a question online.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, Carrie, I was gonna say, we have a question online, which is, was the modeling effort for the third option, the daylighting, run to learn what the percentage reduction is?
We haven't run that one yet, no.
Yeah. There was just a question about the third concept that we presented, if that has been modeled to show the flood reduction kind of benefit there. And yeah.
Yeah, so we haven't run that one yet. It doesn't have as much storage volume as the other projects, and so it would more be, we haven't run it yet. So we can, once we advance the design and have more accurate kind of dimensions and everything, we can plug that in and run it then.
There is a whole modeling component that will continue to be part of the next phase of the project. So the two concepts that we advance, as we refine those, we're going to be updating the model accordingly and related to those concepts to look at the updated benefit. Yes.
So the daylighting piece of it, having grown up in the neighborhood, when the stormwater system connected down at Trent, into the Trent, it wasn't underground. It was literally a straight shot, down 3 feet from ground level, all the way up to Palmetto. And we could actually fish in those little connections. I mean, we used to catch pickerel and sunfish, and it connected directly to Palmetto, and it was a constant flow. That doesn't happen anymore. And they're all filled with salt, and all it's doing is pushing water into the neighbors' houses because the groundwater is so high in that area that the poor gentleman on Trent Road, I can't think of his last name, but his sump pump runs 7 by 24, even in the summertime. And yeah, it's kind of sad. But, and then he's running into a sewer system, but then feeds it right back into his yard again because it's not going anywhere. I think that'll have a bigger impact.
Any other questions? Right. If you haven't signed in, please do so. We're happy to add you to the project mailing list. We do have a project website that we will keep updated, including with this presentation. But it's a great way for us to be able to keep in touch with you about this Manor neighborhood specific project, as well as the regional project, if you're interested in that.
When is the earliest that any of these projects could actually start?
So I guess the one good thing about this next phase is that, so we submit our application tomorrow, and then the town will be notified in probably mid-July about whether or not they were awarded funding for this next round. And then the project can kick off in September. And if it's a 1-year project, it has to be completed within the fiscal year. So by June 30th, 2025. And then again, the next round starts the same time next year, apply for funding again. So I guess it is a pretty quick timeline. Like sometimes grants can take like 6 months or more to kind of move forward. So I feel like, things keep progressing pretty quickly. And so, like I said, maybe we'd be looking at a final design. Maybe we'd put a 2-year project together next and try to move something toward construction, or maybe, other ideas were mentioned here tonight that maybe we want to move forward as part of future phases. So, so it's a pretty quick turnaround. And I think things have been moving pretty fast under this program compared to a lot of other grant programs.
So you mentioned June, so something could actually start happening.
So we're going to finish this project by end of June. So we're going to have those 25% design drawings, and then we'll find out in mid-July about the next phase. And like I said, yeah, if it's funded, then once contracts are signed with the town and EEA, then the work can start in September again. We'll be right back at it. So it's not too much of a kind of break in between, which is nice. Fingers crossed. Yes.
Just want to say I'm furniture because I live in Fullwell Drive, which is not directly in the Manor neighborhood, but adjacent. They had never got them behind this. But I have been coming to these meetings both as a homeowner and as a representative from the Board of Health. I'm not officially appointed to attend these meetings. I come from my own interest. And we have this on our agenda for the Board of Health. We do know that we are, we have sewage problems. We support the efforts of the town to address those problems and whatever can be done to ameliorate those problems. And it's not going unnoticed from other bodies within the town as well. Okay, I just want to, it is further afield and people know about it than just the group of people in this room. And other people have, let's say, emailed me or just let me know in person that I've not seen in person at the meeting, but they let me know that they've had issues with their process and so we are aware of that from that stand. And it will be on the it will be on the agenda for the next Board of Health meeting to see how we can, support the town and support you guys in whatever do that will be.
Great, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, if there's no other questions, just want to again, thank you so much to everyone for being here tonight. Thank you so much to the town, Jason and Joe, Patrick, for having us here tonight and for, supporting this project. And like I said, it's a great project. So super excited to see what's next.
Please take sandwiches on your way.